After the ignition set, as always, you're going to perform your 15-second rest and then get yourself right back in there again.
As you guys know, your post-workout meal shake is so critical. Get into those muscle bellies.
You could push that deadlift to 20 reps if you want. It's gonna have only benefits, not deleterious effects on your lean mass.
Hey guys, welcome back to Smart Simple Fit. Today we're going to be doing a part 2 of the Refuting Hypertrophy strategy series, and today we're going to be covering the anabolic window, the myth of the meal time or don't make any muscle gains, eat within 45 minutes of your workout session, that sort of thing. We're also going to be looking at the practice of training and taking your sets beyond failure. And the third and final one that we're going to be covering today is the practice of very short rest times, like 30-second rest, or even the practice of shortening your rest times in order to get a bigger challenge in your workouts. All right, let's jump right into it. So the first one that we need to debunk or deflate is the anabolic window, this idea that there's a perfect timing for you to be having either calories entering your body and into your bloodstream, or protein entering your body and being digested following a workout, or even the idea of a perfect meal timing before your workouts. And basically it's a myth. Look, you can not only build muscle and get stronger while in a calorie deficit, you can actually build muscle and get stronger pretty much irrespective of when you eat. Now, we'll get into some of the nuance of that, but for most people, it really doesn't matter when you eat as far as training is concerned. Because I can tell you this from experience, having multiple clients that have trained fasted, and myself having trained fasted for a period of at least, I'm going to say close to 5 months, I made some of the best gains in my life. That was earlier this year. Now, it wasn't because I did it for the benefit of fasted training. It was a convenience for the sake of being able to get a hard workout done and then a day's work, right? For some people, it's just the biggest convenience to be able to get up, not have your breakfast, and not shower yet until you're done your training session, work out, then you have your coffee, your breakfast, you get work done, and then if you have other responsibilities after your shift or your day of work is over, then you can attend to those, whether that's family or otherwise. So for a lot of people, training before breakfast is just a matter of practicality. It's not that there's this magical fasting benefit. It's just that if you don't eat before you train, what's going to happen? Well, you're not going to die. You're not necessarily going to pass out, but certainly acutely, your training work capacity is going to decrease. So maybe you would have been feeling subjectively fresh enough to do 5 or 6 or 8 sets of bench press on that day, taken to a given RPE. Well, if you're fasted, maybe you only feel good enough subjectively to do like 4, 5, or 6, or maybe even 3. And if you put in those good quality sets at a comparable rate of exertion, guess what? Just do a little bit less work to match the fact that you don't have as big of a reservoir of glycogen stores in your body because you're fasted, right? You haven't eaten yet in the morning. And the same is true with following a workout. Now, maybe there's some truth to the idea that if you work out really, really hard and then don't eat anything for like 5 hours, that may very well hurt your gains, but chances are it's not going to make a big difference if we're talking about, eating within half hour to an hour of training versus 2 to 3 hours. If you wait 2 to 3 hours, it's probably not going to kill your gains, especially if you're pushing progressive overload. Okay, whatever work you do in a given session, if you sleep and eat and a number of days go by so that way you heal, you allow for super compensation, you're going to be able to come back with a vengeance and train harder next time. So it really doesn't matter as long as you're being consistent and there's no magic timing. Okay, now the nuance to that would be dialing in your training over time. So if you're someone who's very advanced, very strong, you've been training for years, elite numbers, yes, eating closer to your training session, whether that's going into a training session with, being well fed, huge glycogen stores so you can get as much work done as possible, quality work done that is, and then also being able to recover as best as possible. So getting in the calories, the carbs, the protein shortly after your workout, that's probably going to make a tangible difference if you're that advanced and that elite. But to beginners, intermediates, even people who've been training for 3 to 5 years consistently hard and have put on a good foundation for their physique, it's probably not going to make a huge difference, guys. So just do what suits your lifestyle and be consistent and be disciplined. It's the other things that matter, whether you're being consistent in the number of hours of sleep, calories, grams of protein, things like that. Now, I like to think of this as one of the cases of science gone wrong. Look, it creates an opportunity for someone to say, oh, I missed the anabolic window. I might as well just not skip a workout, or they can tell themselves, if I fail to eat within X amount of minutes, my workout was a waste. I've had someone say that to me before. Hey, is it true that if you don't eat within 45 minutes of your exercise, it basically just, null and voids it? No, of course not. And if someone's thinking about their schedule and they're thinking, well, I don't know if I can eat within the anabolic window, I might as well not work out. That's a terrible way of giving someone an excuse for a problem that pretty much doesn't exist, or at least for the vast majority of people who are looking to improve themselves. So often science gives people an excuse. I'm not here to give you an excuse, but people want excuses, and referring to little isolated facts here and there taken out of context from studies, that can provide people with plenty of excuses. So meal timing and protein intake, it matters, it does, but it's not the end of the world. Like I said, I've made some of the best gains of my life fasted, and it wasn't really necessarily fasted by choice. It ended up working out okay. Now, the duration of your workout fasted needs to be shorter, perhaps the intensity less, the number of exercises less. And you know what, as far as when do you eat after your training, I'm also of the mind that the harder and longer the session, the more you need to train, the closer you need to eat to that session. You need to narrow that gap, and also you should be eating bigger. If you just go into the gym or your home gym and you just do 2 hard exercises, that might not stimulate your hunger, and so you might not have a reason to eat. And then if you don't eat for several hours, I can't possibly see how that would be a problem as far as making gains goes. So you're really overthinking it with the anabolic window. Now, training beyond failure is beyond stupid. Don't do it. You don't need to. It's not necessarily going to hurt you or be a threat or kill your gains or anything like that. But look, what happens when you take a set beyond failure, as in failure to do a subsequent consistent rep with the same range of motion and similar quality and technique to previous reps, okay? So if your curls look like this, and then you fail in the last one, you get it up, and you can't get any more, so you start doing partials or cheat reps, okay, that would be training beyond failure as far as my definition is concerned. And so while yes, there are different definitions of failure, I think you guys have a good idea in your head what this is referring to. Now, what happens when you go beyond failure? Your rep quality is going to tank and go into the dump zone, into garbage territory. Your rep quality is going to tank instantly, okay? So dramatically reduced range of motion is probably what you're going to need to do in order to complete more reps. If you can't strictly get it up, you're going to need to either compensate very significantly, or you're going to need to just go halfway up, or same thing with a pull-up or cable rows. You're just going to squeeze it in part way. But the problem with that is when you don't go through, I don't want to say the full range of motion, but most of the range of motion, it's a very different strength curve. So along the way in the movement, there's different leverages that are changing dynamically as your body and the objects you're lifting move throughout space. So if you're just moving a really small area, you're not necessarily working the same muscles, and you're not necessarily working them to the same degree on a rep per rep basis that you would be otherwise if you weren't doing these garbage beyond failure reps. And sure, you might say, oh, it's beneficial because progressive overload, if I did 12 last time and 12 plus a partial, or 3 half reps or 3 compensated reps, that's a progression. Sure, but you could just do 3 extra reps with a rest pause. You could stop at 10 and then go to 13 or 14 after a 20 or 30 second rest. And I think that's a much more sensible way of doing things. Or you can program a shorter set and throw that in as a volume progression. Same thing as that rest pause example I just mentioned. So if you did 3 sets last time, now you can do 4 and just do enough reps in that 4th set that total, the number of reps is more than last time with the same weight, with a very similar quality, meaning technique, control, range of motion. It doesn't have to be perfect carbon copy reps, but more often than not, your reps should look the same. So any potential benefits of beyond failure, as far as I'm concerned, can be attained in a much more sensible manner. Cables and dumbbells may be an exception to this. right? Dumbbells give you the freedom to do a lot of stuff that's interesting and fun. Like if you're taking lateral raises to failure, okay, and then you just do this halfway up, right? Like down 45 degrees angle like that. And then you just like pause and hold that for 30 seconds. That could be a really nice way to burn out or finish off a set for your shoulders, get a crazy pump and just have a good time, push a progression. Sure, I think those are sensible, but back squat, overhead press, deadlift, bench press, pull-ups, pull-downs, rows, I think those are bad examples of training beyond failure. So it can be done in some places, right? The cable, obviously very safe, dumbbells, lots of freedom of movement as well. So maybe you could do a sensible way of training beyond failure there, but otherwise I just wouldn't recommend it. And it offers no unique benefits, okay? It all comes down to tonnages and mechanical tension. So do more sets, do more reps, do rest pauses, do supersets, do drop sets, do anything that's more manageable and sustainable and fun, allows you to focus and not hate your workout than training beyond failure. But if you really want to do it, it is going to give you results. It's just no unique benefit that outweighs the cost of doing it. And last but not least, the short rest. Yeah, 30-second rest. We're going to do heavy deadlifts and then pull-ups with 30 seconds rest in between. Athlete X style, right? Maybe I got that backwards. Either way, that's a terrible way to train. You're not going to get nearly as much out of the deadlifts or the pull-ups with a tiny rest between them. They're heavy compound movements, for crying out loud. Okay, so you need to focus on quality of sets, quality of reps like we were talking about earlier, but you're only going to be able to do that if you rest adequately in between your working sets. What would that look like? Well, this is very subjective, but I think 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 minutes will be the most. I don't see there being a big benefit in going beyond like 5 minutes of rest in between a hard working set. I don't think that for an isolation movement, you even necessarily need to go all the way to 5 minutes. I think 2 to 3 is plenty for isolations and machines and things like that. But if we're talking compound movements, especially calisthenics, weighted calisthenics, barbell, the longer the better, okay? And maybe 5 to 10 minutes would be like for a 1 rep max attempt, okay? Maybe there's a benefit there, but I don't think there's a huge benefit in these gigantic rests. But trust me, guys, if you're currently only resting 30 seconds to a minute in between your working sets, whether it's biceps curls or your squats or push-ups or anything like that, you will notice a huge difference in how strong you are and the quality of your reps and how good your workout feels overall. You'll enjoy it more if you increase your 30 or 60 seconds to 90 seconds, 2 minutes, even 3 minutes. You'll feel a lot stronger. You won't be as shaky on the movements. You won't have to cut out range of motion just to cheat another rep, okay? It's like taking your rest and cutting it down to like 30 seconds or below a minute is basically shooting yourself in the foot and saying that that's a progression for running a marathon. I guess so. It is harder to run a marathon with a bullet in your foot, but I don't think that's a sensible way to push progression. So Athlete X is killing your gains, in case you haven't figured out by now. All right. Resting longer, as mentioned, it's going to increase your overall work capacity. Now, how do you get around this as being an inconvenient thing for your schedule? Well, if you do supersets on movements that are subjectively manageable, sustainable, okay, you're going to cut down plenty of time anyway. So yes, resting on the squats and the deadlifts for 3 to 5 minutes might eat up a lot of your time, but if you're doing biceps curls, lateral raises, or shrugs and calf raises or abs, and hamstring curls back to back, that's going to cut down your rest a lot. You can pretty much go from one movement right into the other without very much rest at all in between. You don't have to rush, but having a few supersets in each session and throughout the week, especially for your isolations, okay, especially for machines, things that aren't super heavy or take fast failure. Yes, supersets are going to do plenty of good job shortening your workout already. If you really like, you could do a circuit. All right, so that's all the efficiency you're going to need. And if you're doing hard enough sets anyways, guys, you don't need to do 5 to 10 in a given workout. If you're training 2 or 3 times a week, chances are probably just doing 3 or 4 or 5 good hard sets per movement is perfectly adequate to create a stimulus for adaptation. All right, so benefits from short rest are probably even cardio or, dare I say, muscular endurance. I might make a video unpacking the term muscular endurance, but that's not today's discussion. The point is, when you get better, when you challenge yourself by keeping the metabolites in your muscle and working with your heart being, really elevated and out of breath, guess what? You get better at doing things that make you out of breath and having the metabolites build up in your muscle. So you'll get better at doing high rep sets, and you'll probably improve your cardio more from doing these short rest things and all kinds of crazy circuits with 3-4 exercises and big major movements and deadlifts and pull-ups back to back. But is a little bit of cardio benefit or muscular endurance, is that worth it? Or are you trying to get bigger and stronger? So it's not that that's no benefit, but you got to have some priorities and you need to be objective here. That's pretty much all I've got for you guys today. So again, it's not that you can never train with a short rest time. It's that you need to strongly consider whether that's a tangible benefit for you and why. Same can be said for meal timing, and also if you're going to take a set beyond failure, you better provide a good explanation of how that's helping you. Otherwise, you might just be grinding through dirty reps that are bleeding into your recovery and making you feel more beat up. That's all I've got for you guys today. So stay tuned for part 3. It's going to come up later this year. And watch the rest of the playlist here, and also check out the Smart and Simple lecture series. All right, and have a good one.